Good morning. Today we will finish our transportation bill, and then we will be taking up public safety and higher education. Minnesotans were really clear in the last election, and they demanded that their legislators take action on gun violence. House DFLers are committed to common sense gun violence prevention measures. There are two really simple, straightforward proposals that have passed in Republican jurisdictions. One is background checks, and the second is red flag laws to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them when they shouldn't have them. And these are really common sense provisions that are broadly supported even among gun owners. Our bill also includes criminal justice reforms and provides strong funding for our courts. The Senate bill, Senator Limmer has been quoted, I don't know if accurately, as saying that his bill doesn't even meet our constitutional obligations. But our bill does, and I'm really impressed with the leadership of Carlos Mariani on criminal justice reform. That's an area that has enjoyed bipartisan support across the country, and we're really hoping to make progress here. When it comes to higher education, we're of course very proud of our tuition freeze. When we went door knocking this summer and fall, nobody asked us to make college more expensive. In fact, quite the opposite. We have a student debt crisis in this country. Really, there's an explosion of student debt, and this is a time for us to be aggressive on tax fairness and make sure that college students can afford to go to college and come out without excessive debt. The Senate, on the other hand, acts that we're in a time of starvation, and their austerity budgets don't do the jobs for Minnesotans. They don't provide Minnesotans the level of government and public services that Minnesotans are asking for and deserve. And we look forward to commencing negotiations and moving the Minnesota Senate.
Good morning. Minnesotans deserve to be safe in their communities and in their homes. Our public safety bill does that through making sure that the court system is adequately funded with gun violence prevention, with a ban on private prisons to make sure that our prison system is working well for inmates, to enhance the number of corrections officers in our prison system so that those are safe places where people can be able to find a new path in life. We do all of those things. We also begin the step of looking at marijuana legalization with a task force to study the issue, which is complex and difficult to navigate at best. And so we are taking the first steps to make sure that we are addressing that issue as best we possibly can in the future. And so we are proud of this public safety bill. It does a lot to make sure that Minnesotans are safe, that our criminal justice system is just, and that our court system can adequately handle the volume of work that we are asking it to do. And so we are happy to take any questions. Or go ahead.
Say a few words about the gun violence prevention measures.
Yes, I'm State Representative Dave Pinto, the author of the criminal background check bill, and I'll just say that it's high time that we do more to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people. We have two provisions in the public safety bill that do just that, one of them being criminal background checks. And I should note that as policymakers, we want to be bold, we want to be innovative, but in fact, there is no way in which these provisions are breaking new ground. These are in use around the country. Legislatures, governors, Republican, Democratic, they're keeping the residents of those states safer, and Minnesota should take the same step as well. Thank you.
I'm Ruth Richardson, and I represent District 52B, and I'm the chief author for House File 9, which is the Red Flags bill. And the bill is designed simply to ensure that people who pose a danger to themselves or others, that they are not going to be in possession of guns. Here in Minnesota, we have a real crisis when it comes to suicides, and gun suicides in particular. 80% of gun deaths in Minnesota, approximately, are related to guns. And so this is a mechanism that can also be a real tool in suicide prevention as well.
Question.
Chair Lish, your bill maintains the civil forfeiture provisions that are, in their own way, almost as controversial as the gun legislation. Is it still in there?
I don't know if it's that controversial, but it is broad bipartisan. Yeah, no, it has bipartisan support and bipartisan opposition. Just like oftentimes this bill in the past has been the same way. Public safety, it has crossed party lines, and that issue does in this case too.
At what point were the bills combined? Was that done in Ways and Means at some point?
Yes, it was done in Ways and Means 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I will say we continued to press the Senate to separate them again. The Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court is also a proponent of separating out public safety and judiciary because the judiciary bill is much, much closer than the public safety bill.
What do you do on that?
Excuse me?
When has she expressed that opinion?
She doesn't do a lot of public speaking, but definitely behind the scenes, she's been pushing all of the leaders to get the judiciary funding expedited and not a part of political battles on other ideological issues.
So omnibus bills are not good in that case, but she.
Omnibus judiciary bills are.
Well, keep in mind that the legislature has large finance bills in different budget areas that are constitutional. And so we do support having constitutionally compliant bills that fund entire agencies. What doesn't make any sense is when people like Kurt Doubt put 1,200 pages or 900 pages on members' desks and don't let them read it, and then ask them to vote.
What do Greater Minnesota DFLers think of the gun provisions? Maybe Representative Olson would want to address that.
Sure. Well, we're bringing forward this bill with the knowing that we have the votes to pass it today. And I think that we, come here united as a caucus and moving forward with this public safety bill that we have. And I think we go into it as a team fully well knowing the needs of Minnesotans across our state. And we look forward to a good conversation today on the floor.
Have they expressed reservations?
There are a couple members for whom this is a difficult vote, and you won't have a 100% united caucus on this issue. We really respect people's autonomy on certain issues of conscience and where they're really in their district called upon to cast a different vote. But this issue has changed so much. You look at where Governor Walz was early in his congressional career to where he is now, and really countless other public servants across the country, including Republicans, who have moved on this issue. And the thing that has moved policymakers on this issue is the Parkland students and the outcry since Parkland. There have been so many different pressure points, Sandy Hook, the Las Vegas shooting, the Orlando nightclub, and there's always been a lot of intensity surrounding, the Tree of Life shooting. We had another shooting this weekend at a synagogue. And I think that policymakers who used to side with the NRA and used to really resist gun violence prevention measures have reached the point where they say, well, we can't do everything, but we can do something. And I'm justified in changing my position because the facts on the ground have changed and what Minnesotans are asking for has changed.
Madam Speaker, it sounds like you're acknowledging your caucus is not going to be 100% united on this. What is your percentage chance of this bill passing with the gun measures still in it?
100%.
100%.
What about separating the gun measures out? The governor just told us that he'd prefer it clean. Is that a possibility in the final weeks here?
No, the gun violence prevention measures have a cost to them. And just like Senator Limmer said on the House floor, the policy that has costs associated with it belongs in the budget bill so that if the policy passed, the money is there to pay for it.
So you don't want to separate it out?
We could certainly send separate bills, but they would just simply be dead. I'm not letting Senator Gazelka stomp gun violence prevention efforts by merely not taking up a bill coming over for the House. We are bringing this to negotiations, and I intend to fight for these provisions until the very last minute or the very last day.
Speaker Hortman, do you have a time scheduled for the joint convention on the regions yet? I'm looking forward to days when you're beyond the budgets and maybe have more time.
Well, when we get beyond the budget, we'll be moving into negotiations. Yeah, regent election is important. We will certainly take up that issue after the budget has passed. We're looking for a little action out of the Senate on things like election security. So I know they're looking for action from us on a few things. We're looking for action from them on a few things. The sleepy Minnesota Senate has to wake up and get some work done. And we'll be ready to move on to other topics once the budget is passed.
So you're linking region vote to them acting on some other things?
I'm not linking it. I'm just saying that there's plenty of work for both of us to get done after the budget passes, some of which could have been done before we started the budget conversation. But there's a lot of time left. I know it's 3 weeks, but this is like the beginning of the fourth quarter. And the last 2.5 minutes of the game really take the longest part of the whole game. We haven't gotten to the 2-minute warning yet.
Madam Speaker, real quick question about the gas tax. The governor just said he's sticking to his guns. No, not to mix bills here. On the 20-cent gas tax, the House is also favored. Do you see any evidence Republicans are giving in on that?
Well, it's not really a matter of whether Republicans will give in. I will tell you it's absolutely essential that we have long-term sustainable transportation funding before we leave the building in May.
Speaker Hortman, very early on, back in December, you talked about possibly having Chairman and Chair Lex both sort of having separate, I guess, or even together, conference committee, having both of those chairs sort of as co-chairs in conference committee, I think you probably have abandoned that idea. What are you going to do now, and how long did you sort of abandon that idea?
Well, we continue to push. We haven't given up on the idea of 2 different conference committees. We continue to push with Senator Gazelka. I understand Senator Limmer is more open to it recently. Everything's fluid. You know, I think Eric Paulson, when he was the majority leader, his sort of catchphrase was, "It's fluid. The situation is fluid." And that is definitely the case with Public Safety and Judiciary. I think that Chair Lesh deserves his own conference committee, and Chair Mariani deserves his own conference committee, and that Minnesotans would be well-served. Not least of which the Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court and the court budgets be well-served by separate conference committees. But we're prepared to get the work done either way.
Can you speak to the Senate stripping 20% of the Historical Society's funding over this signage at Fort Snelling?
Maybe you want to take this.
They need to get their work done. They can't pass a budget that works. They can't get a budget passed on time. And there are 2 words on a sign that offend them so much that they have to strip money out of the Historical Society. That they have time for. It's absurd.
Well, the one thing that it reminds me of is Donald Trump and petty politics driving policy decisions. And that isn't a standard that we should go to in the state of Minnesota.
I can just ask again about the transportation and the gas tax. What are you hearing? There was a recent poll out showing that may not be in favor. Obviously, the governor campaigned on it, won by a large margin. But what are you hearing from constituents? What do you think is going to happen with the vote today? And overall, what do you think Minnesotans really want?
Minnesotans want safe, efficient, modern transportation. And I know there was a Chamber of Commerce funded poll that gave the Chamber of Commerce the result that they were hoping for. But I know that there are also polls showing this is not an issue that people vote on. We passed an increase in the gas tax in 2008 after the 35W bridge collapse. And Minnesotans did not give us a hard time about it because they understand that in order to make our bridges safe, we need to invest. And I think Minnesotans are in the same position here in 2019 as they were in 2008. The needs are obvious on the system. All you need to do is get in your car and go somewhere. And it is clear that we have underinvested in transportation. So again, I don't plan on leaving the building until we have long-term sustainable funding for transportation.
There's a memo circulating that talks about the gas tax and says it's not all for roads and crumbling potholes and bridges, that a lot of it will go to public transportation. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, people really need to read the Constitution. The policymakers who say that have really no defense for spreading falsehoods like that. In the Minnesota Constitution, since about 1950, the gas tax is constitutionally dedicated and cannot be spent on anything other than roads and bridges. And that is still the constitutional requirement and how the money will be spent if it is raised via the gas tax.
All right, still 20 cents though. I mean, when the governor was campaigning, he really was talking figures that amounted more to a 10-cent a gallon gas tax. What about the numbers?
It's important for people to think about the phase-in. So we're talking about a nickel a year for 4 years. A nickel a year for 4 years is really a different conceptual matter, and that's how people should be thinking about. When I talk to people about a nickel a year for 4 years, they understand that that's a very reasonable request.
Thanks, everybody.
So, thanks.
Thank you.